Hello, this is my presentation on guided reading groups, and my name is Jackie Tetzloff. In my guided reading groups, I will conduct groups of about 4 to 6. During this, students will be grouped based off of their reading levels, and I will find their reading levels through various assessments. One that I have become familiar with through my student teaching is running records. The level students read at during guiding reading groups will be slightly higher than that of what they do during independent reading. This will allow them to practice using skills and different strategies. So I will push them just a smidge during that time. I will use assessments to help put students in groups, as I said, and I will also use assessments to pinpoint what students should be working on within their groups and what they should be working on next, different skills and strategies where they need to continue working on. I will use guided reading groups as scaffolding between modeling and independence. Guided reading groups will be built upon what was taught during whole group instruction, and in a bit here I will touch upon the importance of whole group instruction. I plan to engage in read alouds to help my students focus on comprehension, provide contemplation time to questions, and encourage deeper thinking. And as I said, that is part of the whole group teaching, which in my plan I have farther down here. I would do that whole group before I do my guided reading time. So students go to their guided they go and we have our whole group teaching time where all students are included. Then we break off into guided reading time, and lastly we have independent reading time is how I would kind of schedule that out. Here I have read alouds. Also, I plan to engage in read alouds to help my students, as I said before, comprehension, contemplation, to question, and deeper thinking. Another whole group strategy that I plan to use is shared reading. This is, I feel, a very fun one I've seen in my student teaching classroom that students really enjoy when they get their own copy of a book, if that's possible. As the book suggests, I will select a grade level text that supports a specific instructional focus or reading standard. So I will also do that to keep the prior to guided reading. I think those are very important times because you are able to reach all your students at once, which is a really good thing, and it kind of gives you you, the teacher, be able to pinpoint, oh, these students really understand this concept that we just taught whole group, and these students that just received this whole group lesson don't quite understand this, so maybe that's something to work on in guided reading groups. I will also incorporate independent reading. This, as I said before, would go after guided reading in my schedule. This is a way for students to enjoy reading in a relaxed setting. This is where students learn to just love reading, and I definitely want to foster that. Learning to love reading is just vital to help to getting readers to that next level, because if they love it, they're going to do it more, they're going to practice those skills, and it will help them so much in the long run. As I said, the possible schedule would be whole group, guided reading, and independent. I won't talk too much on that since I've discussed it. Guiding reading is different from whole group and independent practice because it works on a specific skill that students need to work on in a small and it's in a small setting. So as I said, it's in a small setting, and you're able to pick out specific skills that the students with you need to learn. So it's a very unique setting that really fosters learning, which I love. They're similar because they're obviously all working together to create a better reader. So that's the beauty of all of them. As the book suggested, during the first 6 weeks of the school year, I will really work on training students to learn to work on their own. This is something that in the past has worried me a little bit about how am I going to get all these other students to make sure they're on task while I'm working with this group of 4 to 6 students. But the book really helped me give some strategies as to how to do this. During the 6 weeks, it's really important to really set the precedence of how you really want to conduct your classroom. The goal of this will be to teach them to be independent learners, so that's very important. It'll be just a slowly build up. I will slowly build up my time in guided reading. I'm not going to just start by having a 20-minute session with a group, because that would be way too long to have students working independently at the beginning. I will definitely make sure that I am just having very short ones, so students are learning those routines until they understand. A great way I kind of thought of having students learn what they should be doing is before I send them off and have them do it independently, make sure we do it a couple times whole group so they understand the routine, and then they are more comfortable doing it independently. While I'm hosting a guided reading group, I plan to have students working on simple stuff as the book explains, including things like reading, writing, listening, and speaking quietly. And these are things that we will practice and make sure they know exactly what they're supposed to be doing at those times. To ensure students know what they're going to be working on, I will put students into groups, and their groups will be posted on a board where they can all see, and what they're supposed to be doing will be right next to them. So they'll be able to go up there and check, and they'll know right away. This is something that's done in my student teaching classroom in the second grade level, so they're very young, but once they see their name up there where it's supposed to be, they automatically know what they're supposed to be doing, and they get to work right away, and I think it works very well, and I definitely want to transfer that over to my classroom. Some things from the book that I thought looked really fun that I would love to incorporate. Obviously, I can't incorporate them all right away, but I really like the idea of book boxes. Well, I observed in a kindergarten classroom, they use these, and I think it's a great way for students to really kind of love to read, to explore. That's obviously better kind of in the younger grades. Buddy reading is a fun one. Writing would be something that I think would always be a constant one that I would want in there, because it's such a vital skill to always be practicing. Word wall would be cool. And lastly, listening to recorded stories, that would be a good one. I feel it would really help students learn or just kind of be more aware of how fluent others readers are, and that's a good skill to practice. I will hold individual conferences with students to ensure they are reading well. They are not in guided reading groups. I think that's a way of holding students accountable that may be just a little drift off. Well, they aren't right beside me and stuff. So I would keep them accountable by making sure I just kind of check up with them every once in a while to see if they're reading and keep them going. I will demonstrate and practice routines to ensure students do not interrupt me while our group is meeting. I know I had a professor one time who explained to me that when she was beginning her guided reading times, she would simply, if a student came up to her, she would just put her hand up and she would not respond to them. At first I was like, oh wow, seems kind of rude, but also now after being in the classroom, I see how that is just a simple way of not interrupting the group. It could signal to the student of, oh, not right now. Like once I am done, we will have this conversation. So I thought that's something that I could possibly carry over into my classroom that might help that just classroom management while that's all going on. Okay, and this is my works cited. I got a lot of it. from our book, obviously, and I really had a good time going over this chapter because it is such an important thing that that I really felt like I needed to know more about. So, thank you. Bye.